That third junction is jam'u himmatin nafs alayhi, collecting or bringing together and high ambition upon it. One's ambition of the self-ambition upon it. Collecting and gathering self-ambition upon knowledge. And that's what he means. Alayhi means upon knowledge. The Arabic word is jam'u himmatin nafs alayhi. Collecting and gathering high ambition or self-ambition upon knowledge. This is the next one, because this is something that is very important, because that is in congruency with the statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says, "Inna Allah yuhibbu ma'ali al-umur wa yakrahu safsafaha." That Allah loves those lofty, high affairs, high ambitious affairs, and He hates those low base, irrelevant affairs. And this hadith indicate and clarifies the importance of seeking loftier things, seeking the lofty, which is of course is the Jannah, seeing the face of Allah, by seeking to do those deeds and acts of obedience that are great with Allah, like Hajj and the likes of that. And when it comes to knowledge, the student of knowledge, or the one who seek it, he should have high ambition upon seeking knowledge. The Shaykh Hafidhullah, he mentions in the book, فَإِنَّ شَعَثَ النَّفْسِ إِذَا جُمِعَ عَلَى الْعِلْمِ اتَّأَمَ واجتمع وإذا شُغِلَ بِهِ وبغيره ازداد تفرقا والشتاتا وإنما تجمع الهمة على المطلوب بتفقد ثلاثة الأمور. He says that when the self or the soul, that indeed the soul, it is spread out and all over the place. وَإِذَا جُمِعَ عَلَى الْعِلْمِ, and then when one collects oneself upon seeking knowledge, you find things will come together and work itself out. That when a person is busy from it with other than knowledge, it increases him in tafarruqa, in differing and splitting, wa shitata, and being in disarray and all over the place. Wa innama tujma'ul himma, he said, ambition is collected and gathered ala al-matlub, upon that thing that it is seeking, bitafaqqadi thalathatul umur, by establishing three affairs. So I'm going to say that again in another way. Indeed, the nafs, it's all over the place. The desires that we have inside of us, it always can have us all over the place, going different directions, wanting many different things at one time. And when it is gathered and focused upon seeking knowledge, upon learning the religion, you will find it will cause everything in that, with the desires is going inside of them, to come together, to stay focused and come together upon a thing. In other words, it will bring their affairs together. In other words, it will unite their focus, unite their affairs, and they will find themselves able to have unity within themselves and have focus upon goals and trying to achieve things. This is what this is referring to. But when the soul is occupied with other than knowledge, all it does is cause the person within himself to increase in differing and going on different directions in his thoughts and what he wants and what he desires. And he says ambition upon something that's sought after comes together when three things is established in the person. So in other words, in order to want to strive to achieve something, to get anything and strive for it and be successful in it, you need to collect within yourself three things. So the Sheikh is clarifying that the nature of the nafs, the soul, your desires that is inside of you, that is calling you to many different things. One day it may want this, one day it may want that. One instance it may desire one thing, and then in another instance it may desire something else. Like that is the nature of the soul. And when you force your desires to seek knowledge of this religion, it causes the affairs of your life to come together, to unite and work itself out. And when the soul or the desires within the person is busy and occupied with other than knowledge, all it does, those other things, is increase the person in being in disarray and all over the place and separate it in his focus. And then he goes on to mention that this type of ambition can only come together for what is sought after by establishing three affairs. And those three affairs is, number one, and is having al-hirs ala ma yanfa', being diligent upon doing that which benefits you. Being diligent to do that which benefits you. Secondly, al-isti'ana billah, continuously asking Allah to help you. Thirdly, عدم العجز عن بلوغ البغية منه, to lack being feeble, weak from achieving your objectives and your seeking of knowledge. To lack being weak and feeble and incapable to achieve the things that you're seeking. The first one, al-hirs ala ma yanfa', being diligent to do the things that benefit you. فَمَتَى وُفِقَ الْعَبْدُ إِلَى مَا يَنْفَعُهُ حَرَصَ عَلَيْهِ. He said, whenever the slave, the worshipper, is granted success by Allah to do that which benefits it, that soul, you will see that person is ambition upon seeking that thing. 8:43, pray at 9 o'clock. You see that person is ambitious upon the thing that they're seeking. And that's the truth. So if Allah grants you success to strive to do that which benefits you, or be granted success by Allah Ta'ala, do the things that benefit you, you see that person zealous upon it. They be zealous, they be diligent to do it. Secondly, while doing that, you seek the assistance of Allah fi tahsili, to help you obtain the thing you're striving for. In that regards, he quotes a poem that he wrote here. He says, إِذَا لَمْ يَكُنْ عَوْنٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِلْفَتَى فَأَوَّلُ مَا يَجْنِي عَلَيْهِ اجْتِهَادُ. He says, when the help of Allah does not exist for a young person, the first thing, the crime that he will do against him, the first crime that will be committed against his own self, is his striving heart will go away. The striving heart will disappear in that thing that he's want to achieve. So if Allah don't help a person, the help of Allah is not present in that young person or any person, the first thing will go is them striving hard upon whatever they're trying to seek. So this is why the second thing is seeking Allah's help. Thirdly, to lack being weak from achieving one's objectives. He says these three affairs is gathered in the hadith in which Imam Muslim has narrated by Ibn Hajjaj, where he said Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba had narrated that Ibn Numayr had said, the both of them said, Haddathana Abdullah ibn Idris, that Abdullah ibn Idris had narrated to us on authority of Rabi' ibn Uthman, on authority of Rabi' ibn Uthman, on authority of Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Habban, on authority of Abu Hurairah, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Ihris ala ma yanfa'uk, be diligent upon doing the things that benefit you. Wasta'in billah, and seek Allah's help, wala ta'jiz, and do not be weak. And when the Prophet ﷺ said, Ihris ala ma yanfa'u, be diligent upon the things that benefit you, meaning benefit your worldly life and your hereafter. It benefit those two things, your worldly life or your hereafter. Be diligent for those things that benefit you. Wasta'in billah, and seek Allah's help. Number two, wala ta'jiz, and don't be weak. Those are the three things that the Shaykh is mentioning. Here, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is giving us the ingredients for success and having high ambition, is by collecting these three things within ourselves upon seeking those things that we're supposed to seek. The Shaykh then says that whoever wants to collect gather his ambition upon knowledge, then let him light or yush'il, let him kindle within himself shu'latil hurs, the kindling of diligency upon something, because that's the only way it will be. I know, because that thing benefits him. Excuse me, because that thing benefits him. Rather, every good thing in this life and the hereafter, إنما هو ثمرة من ثمرات العلم, is nothing more than a fruit, or it is a fruit from the fruits of knowledge. Anything that benefits one dunya or the hereafter is nothing more than a benefit that comes from the benefits of knowledge. وَلْيَسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ, and let him seek assistance of Allah when seeking that, when upon doing that. وَلَا يَعْجِزْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ, and do not be negligent or heedless or lazy or incapable in regards to anything connected to the things that benefit you. You learn what benefits you, you be diligent towards it. You ask Allah to help you, and you don't be weak. You do your best, in other words. فإنه حينئذ يدرك بغيته ويفوز بما أمل. He said this is the only way a person will achieve and reach their objective and reach what they're seeking, and will be successful upon the thing that they're hoping for. Al-Junayd, rahimahullah ta'ala, from amongst the Salaf, from amongst the second generation, he said, ما طلب أحد شيئا بجد وصدق إلا ناله فإن لم ينله كله نال بعضه. He says that no one seeks anything with seriousness and truthfulness, meaning being truthful to what is required to seek a thing, being truthful to that. Not truthful meaning you're not lying, meaning being truthful to this thing that you're seeking. Whatever requires, you're true to a strive for that particular thing. So Junayd is saying, ما طلب أحد شيئا بجد وصدق. No one seeks anything with jidd, with seriousness, وصدق, and being true to that thing, إلا ناله, except that it's going to obtain it. Except that it's going to obtain that thing that it is seeking. فإن لم ينله, and if it does not achieve it, كل, all of it, نال بعضه, it will achieve some of it. It will achieve some of it. And that's the reality of anything. That if you strive hard for it, you seek something with seriousness, may Allah help us all. If we seek something with seriousness and sidq, truthfulness, and again, what is the truthfulness? It's not telling the truth and not lying. It's referring to being true to what is required of you in seeking that thing. You're true to that. You're truthfully striving for that inwardly and outwardly. You're not saying it off your tongue and doing nothing in your actions. No, just a minute, inshallah. Just a second. Oh, he's standing there to call it?
There was a blue Subaru in the Subaru?
It's a blue Subaru.
Oh, somebody need a blue Subaru. It's a blue Subaru moved? Somebody need a blue Subaru moved?
Yeah, you can call it that. You want to call it that? Okay.
Go ahead, we'll take a pause for that, inshallah.
Yeah, but who's calling that?
A blue Subaru?
Who is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's yours? Oh, that's his.
That's his, okay. Alhamdulillah. الله أكبر الله أكبر
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Hand me the mic back. Hand me the mic back. Inshallah, we're going to be short. Sorry about the lateness again. The Sheikh, mashallah, he brings some nice forms of poetry in relation to the importance of having high ambition upon seeking knowledge. And we ended with, before the adhan, with the statement of Al-Junayd, where he said, well, there's no one who seeks anything with seriousness and truthfulness, except that he will obtain it. And if he doesn't obtain all of it, he will then for obtain some of it. And this is the truth. This is the truth. Striving hard is successful. Then he quotes a poem, Al-Jaddu bil-Jiddi, or Al-Jiddi bil-Jaddi, wal-Hirmani bil-Kasadi, fansab tusibba an qaribin ghayat al-amali. Seriousness is because of seriousness, and being prevented and deprived of something is because of laziness. Or excellence is achieved through seriousness, being serious. And being deprived is a result of laziness. So raise your ambition. You will obtain very soon your objective of your hopes. In other words, set goals and strive with seriousness upon that goal. And then he says, فَانْهَضْ بِهِمَّتِكَ. Wake up with your ambition. وَاسْتَيْقِظْ مِنَ الْغَفْلَةِ, and or rise up with your ambition. وَاسْتَيْقِظْ مِنَ الْغَفْلَةِ, and wake up from heedlessness. فَإِنَّ الْعَبْدَ إِذَا رُزِقَ هِمَّةٍ عَالِيَةٍ, for indeed the worshipper, when he is given the provision of high ambition, فُتِحَتْ لَهُ أَبْوَابُ الْخَيْرَاتِ, will open up for him the many doorways of goodness, of that which is good. وَتَسَابَقَتْ إِلَيْهِ مَسَرَّاتِ, and the things that is hidden will race towards him. That's hidden to be able to find and achieve, he'll find those things racing towards him. Whereas if he don't strive, for example, and he doesn't have high ambition and strive hard, the opposite effect will take place. The doors of goodness will be closed for that person. And the things that he's trying to achieve that's hidden it will run away from him. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah says in his book Al-Fawaid, the benefits, إذا طلع نجم الهمة في ظلام الليل البطالة وردفه خمر العزيمة أشرقت الأرض بنور ربها. SubhanAllah. He says, when the star of ambition appear in the darkness of the night of laziness and inactivity, that when that star appears and shines in the darkness of the night of laziness and inactivity, radifahu qamarul azima, that will immediately follow that ambition the moon of determination will follow behind it, the moon of determination, and the earth will shine with the light of its Lord, of his Lord, or of its Lord. So in other words, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah is saying in this poetic statement of his, is that when ambition wake up and begin to appear within a person, in the darkness that he or she is in, within themselves of laziness and inactivity. That when that ambition appears in that and begin to shine in that dark, lazy state of being, will immediately follow behind it the moon of determination, meaning it will shine out of him the determination to achieve what he's ambitious for. He will be determined. That's why Sheikh Hafid al-Hakami, rahimahullah, in his famous book, As-Sunnah al-Manshura, the propagated Sunnah, his questions, a 200 question and answer book that he wrote. It has two names. That's one of them. The other name, 200 questions and answers on Aqidah and Minhaj. In this book, one of the first things he talks about is doing the things that get your deeds accepted. We already know the two conditions for your deeds to be accepted, which is ikhlas, sincerity of intentions, and mutaba'ah, making sure your deeds is in congruency to the sunnah, right? But there's also shartul wujud, a condition for the deed to exist. There's a condition for the deed to exist. And he called it sidqul azima, true determination. True determination. Because think about it. If you want to set out to do some deed that's been legislated in the book of Allah and the sunnah of his messenger, right? If you don't have determination to practice that deed, you either want to start it out and abandon it. Or B, you may not do it at all because of some simple distraction or deterrence. So the first thing, in order for your deed to exist, is you have to have sidqul azim, a true determination. What is true determination? He says it is lacking being lazy and procrastination. To lack laziness and procrastination. Okay? And this is basically the meaning of Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah. He's describing it in the analogy of describing batala. In Arabic, batala is one of his, it means inactivity. It means being lazy, just being inactive. Right? They use it in Arabic to mean unemployment because you're inactive, you're not working. But here it's referring to a person, he's called describing being inactive and not striving for anything as batala, as something that's being inactive. He's describing it as walam layl, the darkness of the night. It's something that's dark. It's not something good, not to be ambitious for things in life. He's describing it as darkness. And he's calling having ambition to achieve things as a najm, as a star. He's describing it as a star. These are two opposites. One is darkness, one is light. A star that shines. And he says when that shine or that star appears within you, it naturally radifahu, follows behind it, qamarul azima, the moon of determination. What the moon does, it shines. The shining of determination. And when you see a person who's determined and ambitious to achieve something, they always stand out amongst the people, correct? They always stand out. They almost glowing because they are determined to achieve that thing. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to come to an end with this statement. He says, وَمَنْ تَعَلَّقَتْ هِمَّتُهُ بِمَطْعَمٍ أَوْ مَلْبَسٍ أَوْ مَأْكَلٍ أَوْ مَشْرَبٍ لَمْ يَشَمْ رَائِحَةَ الْعِلْمِ. That whoever's ambition is for some food, or for clothing, or for eating, or for drinking, he will never smell the fragrance of knowledge. He will never smell it. He won't even be nowhere near achieving any knowledge. And this is a true fact. Inshallah ta'ala, if you brothers want, after we finish praying, we can continue. If not, we'll take it to we'll end. And then he ends that point with the poem, know that knowledge cannot be obtained for the one whose ambition is in some food or clothing or worldly things. So be diligent to achieve in your portion, your major portion of knowledge that Allah has revealed. And abandon the good feeling of sleep and rest and get up in the wee hours of the night to achieve them. هذا، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. If you want, inshallah, we'll continue after Maghrib, after Isha, and if y'all want, we'll continue for next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Yes, take them both. Nice جلبية. فإن مما يعلن الحمى يسمو النفس.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. Coming back. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين
آمين.
أم حسبتم أن تدخلوا الجنة ولما يعلم الله الذين جاهدوا منكم ويعلم الصابرين ولقد كنتم تمنون الموت من قبل أن تلقوه فقد رأيتموه وأنتم تنظرون وما محمد إلا رسول قد خلت من قبله الرسل أفإن مات أو قتل انقلبتم على أعقابكم ومن ينقلب على عقبيه فلن يضر الله شيئا وسيجزي الله الشاكرين وما كان لنفس أن تموت إلا بإذن الله كتابا مؤجلا ومن يرد ثواب الدنيا نؤته منها ومن يرد ثواب الآخرة نؤته منها وسنجزي الشاكرين وكأين من نبي قاتل معه ربيون كثير فما وهنوا لما أصابهم في سبيل الله وما ضعفوا وما استكانوا والله يحب الصابرين وما كان قولهم إلا أن قالوا ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين فآتاهم الله ثواب الدنيا وحسن ثواب الآخرة والله يحب المحسنين. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن تطيعوا الذين كفروا يردوكم على أعقابكم فتنقلبوا خاسرين بل الله مولاكم وهو خير الناصرين. سنلقي في قلوب الذين كفروا الرعب بما أشركوا بالله ما لم ينزل به سلطانا ومأواهم النار وبئس مثوى الظالمين. ولقد صدقكم الله وعده إذ تحسونهم بإذنه حتى إذا فشلتم وتنازعتم في الأمر وعصيتم من بعد ما أراكم ما تحبون منكم من يريد الدنيا ومنكم من يريد الآخرة ثم صرفكم عنهم ليبتليكم ولقد عفا عنكم والله ذو فضل على المؤمنين. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله سمع الله لمن لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
class or you want to call it quits? I'm asking. Up to y'all. Huh? Like 15 more minutes or something like that. So you want to continue? All right. I don't want to cause no disturbance. Yes, inshallah, we on, brother. Talking to you, Saeed. We on for tomorrow.
I want to get some clarification of your cook also after.
Okay, inshallah. Oh, you was here? Yes, I didn't even see you.
Huh?
I didn't even see you.
Listen to it.
Oh, that's right. It was okay. Yeah, because you be over in another state. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام الأتمان والأكملان على خير الأنام وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Continuing on in the book, the Sheikh Hafidhullah, Sheikh Salih Al-Usaymi, he continues on with giving descriptions and clarification of the importance of striving with high ambition towards knowledge. And so he continues on in the book to now talk about the best way to have high ambitions upon learning your deen and upon learning this religion. He says, وَإِنَّ مِمَّا يُعْلِ الْهِمَّةَ وَيَسْمُو بِالنَّفْسِ اعتبار حال من سبق وتعرف همم القوم الماضين. He says, truly from the things that will heighten and raise ambition and make one's ambition become lofty and one's soul and self to yasmu, to reach high rankings, is considering the condition of those who came before us with their ambition and knowing the ambition of the people of the past. Knowing the ambition of the people of the past. And then he gives one example. He says, Abu Abdullah Ahmad ibn Hanbali, Imam Ahmad, known as Abu Abdullah, the father of Abdullah, Ahmed, the son of Hanbal. Kana, he used to, وَهُوَ فِي السِّبَاء, when he was a young boy, a little boy, like this age. He was a little boy. رُبَّمَا أَرَادَ الْخُرُوجَ قَبْلَ الْفَجْرِ إِلَى حِلَقِ الشُّيُوخِ. He says, sometimes, or perhaps he would want to go out to join the circles of the scholars before the dawning of Fajr. فَتَأْخُذُ أُمُّهُ بِثِيَابِ. His mother, he would put on his clothes and get ready to walk out the door before the dawning of Fajr, to be early. And his mother would grab his clothing that he was wearing to stop him from walking out the door. تَقُولُ, and she would say to him, رَحْمَةً بِهِ, to show mercy upon her son. حَتَّى يُؤَذِّنَ النَّاسِ أَوْ يُصْبِحُوا. She said, don't leave until the people call the adhan, or the morning, or until the morning reaches, meaning the after Fajr. So he would try to set out, and during that time it was dangerous, to go out that early, a little boy, and you got all types of wicked and evilness that took place in the land. This is an example of looking at how ambitious the Salaf would be to be early to their durus, in spite of the fact danger might present itself, in spite of the fact that they may have in front of them serious hindrances. He didn't think about that as a little boy. He knew it, but he was diligent, and his mother would grab his clothes to stop him from leaving out of mercy and love for her son. Khatib al-Baghdadi, rahimahullah, he had read Sahih al-Bukhari, the whole Sahih of Bukhari, the whole authentic book of Sahih Bukhari. He read that whole book, all of it, to his Sheikh Ismail al-Hiyari in 3 nights, in 3 gatherings, in 3 sit-downs, in 3 sittings. 2 of them was in 2 nights, from the time of Maghrib until the dawning of Fajr of the next day. 2 nights of that, reading Bukhari to his teacher. The 3rd night, he would begin in the Sahwat al-Nahar, like after the sun has risen, like the duha time. He would read from that time until the prayer of Maghrib for the 3rd one, on the 3rd night. So what is that saying? What is he saying? So catch, I hope y'all paying attention. He says the first 2 nights, he would begin from Salatul Maghrib until the dawn of Fajr. That's 2 nights. And then the 3rd night, he began from Fajr time, not from Fajr time, after the sun has risen up until Maghrib. So that means after the 2nd night, it's Fajr time. He prays Fajr, probably did his morning dhikr, probably waited till the sun rose, prayed, could have ate something perhaps, and he went to go finish with the Sheikh until Maghrib came, at duha time, until Maghrib, until the dawn. He would start at this. I made a mistake. On the 3rd night, he would begin in the morning time until the prayer of Maghrib, and then he would turn around and after praying Maghrib and wait until the sun risen, or for the Fajr of dawn of the next day, of that up until that 4th day. So he did 3 nights like that. Who do you know ever did something like that? Read the whole of Sahih Bukhari to his teacher, wanting to finish Sahih Bukhari. Imam al-Dhahabi, who wrote the famous book, I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een, he wrote the famous book, Sir al-A'lam al-Nubala, that's famous to everybody. I like to call it the lifestyle of the rich and famous, because it's the lifestyle of the first 3 generations, starting with the Prophet ﷺ. Imam al-Dhahabi, I'm going to answer your question in a second. Imam al-Dhahabi, I'm going to take your question in a second. Imam al-Dhahabi said in his book Tariq al-Islam, about this action of Khatib al-Baghdadi that he did with his Sheikh Ismail. He said, هذا شيء لا أعلم أحد في زماننا يستطيع. Now this is Imam al-Dhahabi talking, who was a contemporary of Imam Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah and Ibn Taymiyyah from that time. He said about Khatib al-Baghdadi, who came before them, he said, Wallahi, he didn't say Wallahi. He said, this act is something that I don't know anyone in our time that's able to do that. That was his time. So we talk about over 800 years ago was the time of Imam al-Dhahabi. Imam al-Dhahabi talk about what took place from the actions of Khatib al-Baghdadi, who came way before him. He said, we don't know nobody in my time today that has the capability of doing that. Rahimahullah Aba Abdullah, كيف لو رأى همم أهل هذا الزمان. And the Sheikh, the author of the book, he says, may Allah have mercy on Abu Abdullah, Khatib al-Baghdadi. Imam al-Dhahabi. He said, what would he think if he saw the ambitions of the people of today? ماذا يقول? What would he say? What was your question about? You had a question about what did you say?
You said he read it to his sheikh, like he memorized it and then he said it back, or they went over the book?
No, he read the book to his sheikh, just read the book. The Hall of Sahih Bukhari from cover to cover. It took him 3 nights to do that. And it could have been some ta'liqat, but it said he just read it to his sheikh.
No, my thing was like, was it like sheikh giving class?
No, see, you have, in the lands of the Muslims, they still do it to this day. You have gatherings of just reading books of hadith to get an ijazah. And the sheikh, you read the book to him, you read it out loud in Arabic, making sure you don't make no mistakes in your pronunciation and you're reading the whole book from beginning to end. Like Sheikh, for example, a more recent one, Sheikh Abdul Salam al-Shuway'ir. It took him 14 years to read Sahih Bukhari to the Mufti of Saudi Arabia, to get his chain of the whole Sahih Bukhari back to the owner of the book, the author of the book, Imam Bukhari. So this is called a reading of Hadathana. You're just reading the text. This still takes place to this day, alhamdulillah, as that's an example of it. And I saw the Sheikh get his ijazah from the Mufti of Saudi Arabia. This was like 5 years ago, maybe a little longer than that. So that was the case of him. And then the Sheikh Hafidhullah, he says, Abu Muhammad ibn Tabban, أول ابتدائه يدرس الليل كلها, that he was from Morocco, Abu Muhammad ibn Tabban, from among people of the past. The first beginning stages of his seeking of knowledge, he would study the whole night. He wouldn't sleep at night and would study the whole night. وكانت أمه ترحمه وتنهاه عن القراءة بالليل. And his mother, out of mercy to him, she would prohibit him from reading like that at night. فكان يأخذ مصباح. So, and how would she do that? She would cut off his lamp, tell him to go to bed. You can't, out of mercy, it's too much. You got things to do in the morning. Go lay down, boy. So he would go lay down with the light off, and he would take his lamp, وَيَجْعَلَهُ تَحْتَ الْجَفْنَةِ, and he would put the lamp under a cover, like a blanket. شَيْءٌ مِنَ الْآنِيَةِ الْعَظِيمَةِ, he would put it under a big blanket, right? And have a container over that I guess like over the lamp, right? وَيَتَظَاهَرُ بِالنَّوْمِ, so he can fake like apparently he's sleeping. So he put the blanket over him with the lamp and the big container over because the lamp it'll burn the cover if he just left it, over the lamp. So he would have a container over the lamp and then place the blanket over so it appears to his mother that he was sleeping. فإذا رقدت أخرج المصباح وأقبل على الدرس. And when she would lay down, he would light up, he would pull out that misbah, and he would embark upon his lessons. Soon as she laid down and fell asleep. And then the Sheikh says, the author of the book, وَقَدْ رَأَيْتُ فِي بَعْضِ الْمَجْمُوعَاتِ الْخَطِّيَّةِ في مكتبة النجدية خاصة مما ينسب إلى عبد الرحمن بن حسن آل شيخ صاحب فتح المجيد قوله شمر إلى طلب العلوم ذلولا وانهض لذلك بكرة وأصيلا وصل السؤال وكن هديت مباحثا فالعيب عندي أن تكون جهولا. الله Akbar. He says that I've seen the author of the book, Sheikh Salih Usaimi, in some of the handwritten encyclopedias in the library of the Najd Library, specifically, from that which was attributed to Abdul Rahman ibn Hassan Ali Sheikh, the author of Fathul Majid, the direct grandson, the first grandson of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. He wrote the most well-known and considered best explanation, Fathul Majid. It's translated. He's the one who have after every chapter the little questions and answers and footnotes, or like points of benefit from each chapter. He was murdered by the Ottoman Empire. They put him in a line of fire and they shot him to death. He was murdered for calling to Tawheed. This man, he said, Sheikh Salih Usaimi, that he saw in the library of Najdiyah a writing, a manuscript inside of this encyclopedia, handwritten encyclopedia. In it was something that was attributed to Abdul Rahman ibn Hassan Ali Sheikh, the owner of the book Fathul Majid. He wrote a poem saying the following: شمر إلى طلب العلوم ذلولا embark upon seeking the sciences of Islam for a long period of time. One help and rise, لذلك بكرة وصيلا. Get up to do this morning and evening. وصل السؤال, and link the questions, meaning to the people of knowledge, to ask. وكن هديد, so that you will be guided. مباحثا, will be guided because you're researching and studying. فالعيب, because blameworthiness, عندي, to me, and takuna jahula, is to be ignorant of your religion. Is to be ignorant of your religion. So after quoting that, the author says, فَكُنْ رَجُلًا رِجْلُهُ عَلَى الثَّرَى ثَابِتَةً. He says, be a man or a person who his foot is firmly embedded into the ground. وَهَمَّةُ هِمَّتِهِ فَوْقَ الثُّرْيَةِ. He said, and let his head have high ambition to be way above the dirt. سامقة, lofty and ambitious. وَلَا تَكُنْ شَابَ الْبَدَنِ. He said, do not be a person who's young in his body. أُشِيبَ الْهِمَّةِ, but he's old in his ambition. فَإِنَّ هِمَّةَ صَادِقٍ, because truly the ambition that is true, a true ambition, لَا تَشِيبُ, it'll never get old. It'll never get old. It'll never get old. And I remember in regards to this, when I heard the story and I read in the life of Ibn Baz, when he was in his 80s, 70s and 80s, that he had traveled with a group of men from Riyadh to Mecca to make Umrah. And that's a long journey, a very long journey, maybe close to like almost driving from California to this side of the world. Very long ride. And when they got there late at night, he said they got off, they ate their food, and everybody laid down to go to sleep because they was tired from the journey and from the travel. And I noticed Sheikh Ibn Baz was waiting for everybody to lay down and go to sleep. Because Sheikh Ibn Baz, he was blind, he couldn't see. So he can hear if you're laying down or if you're sitting up. His acuteness of his hearing was strong. So he said, I noticed, the narrator of this story that I'm telling you, he said, I noticed that Ibn Baz was waiting for everybody to lay down. He said, so I laid my head down so that he would think that I'm laying down too. And when he thought that I was laying down, I just wanted to see what he was going to do, because you could see he was waiting for us to all go to sleep. And when he thought that I was laying down, which he did lay down, but he wasn't asleep, he said Sheikh Ibn Baz got up, found his way to the bathroom, made wudu, and started praying the night prayer. He said, when he did this, I'm laying here on my bed, laying down, saying to myself, how can I let this old man outdo me, who he was in his 30s at the time, early 30s? How can I let him outdo me? He said, but I was tired. We was all tired. So I got up and made wudu and stood next to Sheikh Ibn Baz. He says, shortly thereafter, my legs began to tremble and shake, and I couldn't keep up with him. So I walked the prayer and went and laid down and went to sleep. And behold, when I woke up in the morning, I thought I would find Sheikh Ibn Baz sleeping, but he was awake. I didn't know whether or not he had slept or was just up the whole night praying and was up till I woke up. I never knew. So that day, he continued through the whole day on their Umrah and with all they was doing, never to rest. He says, so when we was at the end of the day, I asked Sheikh Ibn Baz, I said, where did you get this type of energy to be active when I'm a young man and I can't even keep up with you? And this go back to what this poem says, that when the ambition is high, ambition never get old. He said, how can you have this level of ambition? I'm a young man and you're an old man. How? And I can't compete with you. He kept asking Sheikh Ibn Baz. And he said Sheikh Ibn Baz, Abdul Aziz Ibn Baz, wouldn't answer him at first. But he said after the third time of asking him, he basically told him that once the heart is worshiping Allah, the body don't feel the fatigue. The body don't feel the fatigue. The heart is entertained from this worship of Allah. The body don't feel fatigue. But this is a person who drilled himself and trained himself because of high ambition. And so the ambition never becomes old and like the body does. Or like the example of Sheikh Uthaymeen when his wife, when being interviewed after his death, when she was asked, about the worship of Sheikh Uthaymeen, and she described it. And the questioner said, didn't the Sheikh in his old age begin to slow down in his worship and teachings? He said, no, rather he increased in teaching and more worship as he got older. So this is what is meant by this poem. That's an example of that. When the ambition is lofty, the body is not going to feel the oldness that it has arrived at. And this is because of the success of Allah being granted to that person. And so that's why he says, ambition, it don't be affected by old age. It don't get old like the body does. And we end with the statement of Abu al-Wafa ibn Aqil. He was one of the Adhkiya al-Alam min al-Fuqaha al-Hanabila. He was one of the extremely intelligent scholars of the Hanbali madhab, jurists from the Hanbali madhab. And he said in a poem that has 80 lines of poetry in it, he says, ما شاب عزمي ولا حزمي ولا خلقي ولا ولائي ولا ديني ولا كرمي. He said, my will always stay young, my determination and my decisiveness and my character would always stay young, and my loyalty and my religion and my nobility and generosity. وَإِنَّمَا اعْتَاضَ شَعْرِي غَيْرُ صِبْغَتِي وَالشَّيْبُ فِي الشَّعْرِ غَيْرُ شَيْبِ فِي الْهِمَمِ. Allahu Akbar. He said, Hafidhahullah, my hair become exchanged with it being colored and dyed. And grayness, or old age, in the hair is not the old age, is not old age in one's ambition. So in other words, yes, my hair can become old and I can dye it, it turns gray. He said, but old age that's old age in relation to my hair. He says, but other than that, there's no oldness in one's ambition. And this is the truth, man. Like many of the ulama of the past, they would be so ambitious, they would keep memorizing, keep learning well into old age. Like everybody familiar with Abdul Rashid Sufi. Everybody heard of him, right? The famous Qadi. He's one of the major scholars of the sciences of the Quran. Somalian man who recites the Quran. I heard him say his father was at the age of 80 because his father had him in old age. He was the youngest of his siblings. He said his father at the age of 80 traveled to Egypt from Senegal to learn all of the qira'at, the various forms. He knew 2 forms of qira'ah. He went to Egypt to learn all the rest of the other 10 forms of recitation of the Quran. And his father at the time was the Mufti of Somalia. So the government of Egypt accommodated him, gave him a place to stay, and he was 80 years old going to study that. Because of this, the ambition don't become old like the body does. And if that ambition is present in your heart to learn this religion, and you're diligent about it, and you have lofty ambition, there will be nothing to hinder you from achieving your goal. Nothing. Look at the beautiful young brother, Hafidhahullah, who's a student of Abdul Rashid Sufi. He became famous. I think his name is Abdul Rahman something. I forgot his full name. He's from the UK. He's Somalian also, but Somalian British. He taught him. He had learned the Quran at a young boy. I don't know if he learned it on his own or had a teacher, but Abdul Rashid Sufi was traveling to Britain and heard him reciting Quran in another room. And he went to listen to him, and he found this boy recited the Quran, and I think it was the recitation of Warsh, I forgot what form, and he was perfect in reciting it. So he asked him, he went and sat with the young boy and started reading Quran with him because he loved to see somebody reading the Quran, reciting from memory. He wasn't looking in the Quran, he was reciting from memory. So he goes over with the young boy to sit with him, and they go on reciting, bowing back and forth. And after he finished, he said, your tajweed is perfect. Who taught you? He looked at Abdul Rashid Sufi and said, you taught me. He said, Sheikh Abdul Rashid Sufi said, I began to think like, I don't remember having this man. This young boy is a student. When did I teach him? And he thought about it. He said, I don't remember ever teaching you. I don't believe me ever teaching. He said, no, I never sat with you. But I learned this form of recitation by listening to your recordings. I did the whole Quran with you. And learned this form of recitation every surah in the Quran. From a cassette tape. When the ambition is high, nothing comes between you and what you want to achieve of seeking knowledge. But if you don't have what this third pillar or third junction of the 20 principles or 20 junctions of magnifying knowledge, this one of collecting high ambition upon seeking knowledge. That this is something that's important. And it starts with being consistent, with being, like the Sheikh said, being diligent for what benefits you, always asking Allah Ta'ala to help you, and not being weak. Not being weak, meaning seizing all the means around you to achieve something. Don't let none of those means that is available to us to achieve something, if you have it before you, seize it. Don't be weak. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ was referring to in that hadith that we begin. And this is what the Sheikh is referring to under this subject matter. Under this subject matter of having high ambitions upon learning this religion, learning the Arabic language, learning the Quran, memorizing the hadith of the Messenger of Allah, learning the aqeedah of the Salaf. These are things that we all should be striving for on one level or another at our own pace. Because we can have the same ambition, but everybody may get to that ambition in different levels. One may do it in a year. Another one may take him 10 years. But he got a goal, and he's chipping away at that, achieving that ambition through learning this religion. And this is important for us to do. Strive hard, whether through the obstacles that present itself to you within yourself, because even which we're going to cover, the scholars call the things that's in yourself awaiq, these things that hinder you, how to deal with them. The religion is so well detailed, all of that has been covered. What you will face in the pursuit of knowledge, in you and on the outside of you, and how to face them. And this is why the ambition is a very paramount aspect of magnifying knowledge and being able to learn knowledge, is having lofty and high ambitions like many of the Salaf. The 80-year-old man left his wife and his kids, go to Egypt to go learn all the, and he achieved it. His father learned all of that. SubhanAllah. And his father used to make khatam of the Quran every 3 days. He used to finish reciting the Quran from memory every 3 days until he died. Rahimahullah. That's why his son, Rashid Sufi, does it every 5 days. That's what I heard him say, every 5 days. So I remember, everybody ever been to Qatar and prayed behind him? He leads the Taraweeh and the daily prayers with different recitations every day. He'd do a different recitation. Like that. Taraweeh, he'd do a different recitation. And he was asked one time, don't you need time to do muraja, to review your Quran? He said, no. He said, because I constantly finish it every 5 days. So I can just... the whole Quran is like Al-Fatiha. Like how all of us got Al-Fatiha, he got the whole Quran better than the way we got Al-Fatiha. The whole Quran. And he requires the students, when they memorize Quran, he said he'll make you recite with saying one time. The first time, you don't have to say the case ending at the end of every, what's the case ending of the letter at the end of each verse? Like, for example, Qul huwa Allahu ahad. That's without saying what's on the end of the d. So you do the whole Quran like that. Then the next time you recite to him, before he give you the ijaz in the Quran, you got to recite it with saying whatever case ending is at the end of the word. Qul huwa Allahu ahadun, Allahu samadu, lam yalid, like that. So he said, because if you don't know what's at the end of the verse, you haven't memorized the whole Quran. And that's the truth, mashallah. What is that? Himma, high ambition upon learning this deen of Islam. And this is how we all supposed to be. That's why the ulama become the ulama, have high ambition to implement and practice the sunnah, the knowledge that they obtain. We all have to be like that. Be ambitious and encourage one another, incite one another. Make ourselves first and foremost, and those around us. Encourage those around us to strive upon loftiness and following the statement of Allah, ittabi'u ma unzila ilaykum min rabbikum. Follow that which has been revealed to you from your Lord. Now, so this is important for us that we strive in this fashion, and Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala will grant us all success if we stay on top of checking your inside and making your ambition low, because it's getting you closer to Allah. That's all it is. Just imagine you dying and you live this life of sabr, of patience, with tasabbur, making yourself be more patient upon making yourself practice obedience of Allah, learning obedience of Allah, understanding the obedience of Allah the way He intended it to be understood, learning the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam the way He intended it to be understood, and then you striving your best to implement that. You're going to be so lit up with the bounties that came with practicing this knowledge that you can't help but to spill it on other people, because it's benefiting your life so much you want to share it with others. This is important. May Allah bless all you brothers. We ask Allah, the Lord of the tremendous throne, to guide us to having lofty ambitions في طلب العلم and learning His deen. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على